Hello and welcome to What It Takes, where we talk to leaders and change makers so that we can both learn about important places in our region, but also learn some lessons from folks who have things they can teach us all. My guest today fits both of those categories. As the new president of Roanoke College in Salem, Dr. Frank Shushok has some big shoes to fill following the long tenure of former President Mike Maxey. He's no stranger to the area, however, after spending 13 years up the road at Virginia Tech, and I'm pleased to welcome him to the program.
Tom, I'm so glad to be here. This is a ton of fun.
Well, we're really glad to have you. And as I was telling you before we started recording, this is a year of change for college presidents in our area. We've got a new president at Radford University. You have arrived, and Mary Dana Hinton came to Hollins during the pandemic. So we're getting a chance to talk to all of you and give you a chance to introduce yourselves to the community. First question I always ask, how did you get here? What led you to where you are now?
Oh, Tom, when I think about life, everything in life is often a surprise. And landing as the president of Roanoke College wasn't something I ever imagined for myself, especially when I think back to being a student in high school. School was always really hard for me. So the idea that someday I would be talking to you as the 12th president of Roanoke College is a wonderful and beautiful surprise. In the same way, I was 13 years and most recently as Vice President for Student Affairs at Virginia Tech, and loved every minute of that and was enjoying it. And the opportunity came to explore being the president of Roanoke College. And candidly, I didn't know a lot, but every step forward in that process, I just found myself falling more and more and more in love with that place. And so again, another surprise. I hope that's good news for any young person watching, because they think most people had their lives planned out, how they got to there. And,
right.
And really it's one small opportunity right in front of you that you said yes to that leads to another, and we all grow and evolve and learn. And that's how I found myself here. I'm a very fortunate, blessed person. Thanks to a lot of people who have seen out before me and coached me and pushed me and mentored me. And, I certainly didn't get here by myself, that's for sure.
Perhaps like me, as somebody who's been an educator also, were your teachers, your former teachers, have they been surprised to see the path that you've taken?
Oh, I try to share this story as much as I can, but I am a guy who almost didn't graduate from high school.
Wow.
When I was in first grade, I was diagnosed with learning disabilities. I'm dyslexic, and I struggled all the way through school. By the time I was a sophomore in high school, I failed 2 classes, had to repeat them in summer school. But back to your question about teachers, I had 2 teachers in particular, Gail Pack and Keith Christian, who just saw in me things I didn't see in myself, and they gave me a big kick in the pants and helped me really think about the way that I learn and to structure my learning differently. And that's what it took to begin unraveling a series of observations about myself, and which one was that I had adopted an identity for myself that I wasn't smart. And the interesting thing about people with learning disabilities is not that they're smart, they just learn differently.
Sure.
And once you can learn how you learn and adapt to that, you can actually perform brilliantly out there. So thanks to those people, I found my way to college barely. But by the time I got to college, I really began to unravel my potential and found out not only can I do school, that I love school and I love learning. And I just draw a direct line to a couple teachers who saw in for me before I saw for myself and said, I see potential in this guy.
And that, what a lesson for somebody who's been in charge of student affairs and now as a college president. Have you already experienced students at Roanoke College who, your openness about your difficulties has caused them to think a little differently about school?
Oh, I've had so many conversations with young people who say, me too, I've never had someone be so open and honest about it. And I can't tell you how encouraging it has been to hear from parents too, because everyone needs an example of someone that seems a little like them. Because when you see that, you say, I can do that too. And I think that's really important and part of the reason that I try to say this out loud. And I'll tell you a little story, and that is, I did not share this until I was 40. And that was because I was in academia, ended up being a tenured professor, and even until I was 40, I held that within because I thought, well, maybe if people knew that I have a learning disability or that I struggled in high school, because my colleagues thought, surely Frank was a great student in high school because he's a smart guy now. But when I was 40, I realized what a huge disservice it was that I wasn't open with my story, because lots of people need the encouragement of saying, wow, I'm not alone. There's a lot of people out there who struggled. You know, the other thing I would say about this I think is so important is our educational system is built on a very linear timeline. And the problem is human development is on a very different and very diverse timeline. And so many students are just benchmarking on this artificial timeline. And the problem is students develop very differently. And where I found my capacity to learn was when I was 18. Whereas other people, really find that sweet spot when they're in 5th grade or 1st grade or 8th grade. And so we have to really understand that the way we calibrate intelligence in American culture is not very productive.
Right, and being willing to share our own struggles when we've been successful has got such power to it.
Yeah.
I alluded to it in my opening remarks, but Mike Maxey's he was at Roanoke College for a long time, much beloved, and I am assuming that he's been there for you when you need him, but also, you're following, and you've got some pretty big shoes to fill there.
Yeah, well, if anyone knows Mike Maxey, they also know that he's been there for me. That's just the kind of human being he is. He's a remarkable person, and he's been a good coach. In fact, I got an email from him today. I've got my first Board of Trustees meeting, and he said, hey, if you want to chat about that, please call me. He's that kind of person. And Roanoke College is that kind of place. And people always ask me, what's it like to try to fill Mike Maxey's shoes? And my answer is, I don't ever try to fill Mike Maxey's shoes. That's an impossible task. So what I try to do is be myself and do the best that I can for the community that I've come to love.
I saw a cute video of you welcoming freshmen to campus and getting a tour of some of the quirky things about Roanoke College. So maybe just tell me a little bit about, the rock and the kicking post and the seal and things that people who haven't spent a lot of time on campus might not know about.
Yeah, well, there's all sorts of things. One of the things I think is interesting is we give everyone a lanyard that you put your student ID in, but everyone makes fun of everyone who actually uses it, and the only people that actually use it are the first years. And so, of course, I put mine on, and of course, that was what I was, a first year. So I'm not wearing the lanyard anymore. But if you go to the administration building, there's a beautiful seal out front, and you're not supposed to step on it. If you step on it before you have a degree from Roanoke College, then you probably won't graduate, is the lure. Wow. And thankfully, I had a student who saved me, actually dove to rescue me from stepping on the seal, because maybe I won't finish the presidency well if I had stepped on the seal. But there's also a kicking post that you can't walk by without kicking it. Again, it has deleterious impact if you fail to follow these really important rules.
I think every campus has something like that. Rubbing the toe of John Harvard, the founder, in Harvard Square, and I know we had them in Bloomington, Indiana, where I went to college. Roanoke College in general, what do you say to someone who's never heard of it when you're trying to explain what Roanoke College is and what its place is in sort of the ecosystem of higher ed in the area?
Yeah, well, I have been on a number of college campuses as a as a faculty member, as an administrator, I've worked at mainly really large public institutions. This is my first foray into a 2,000 student college campus. I am absolutely in love with the kind of education that it delivers. It's intimate. You know, most of our classes are going to be 15 to 18 students. The faculty member is going to know every student and the details about them, and I think most importantly, every faculty member is going to know what Frank Shushok's goals and aspirations are at any given time, and be thinking ahead of Frank Shushok, how do I get Frank where Frank is trying to go? Or if Frank doesn't know where he's trying to go, how do I help Frank sort that out? That's the kind of place Roanoke College is. It's intimate. The education, I would call it customized. So there's a chance for students to really build their education and to think intentionally about how they take courses that complement this course or that course, or can I study business finance and poetry? Can I hold those two things together? And the answer at Roanoke College is yes. I can't say enough about the faculty members. These are really distinguished faculty members, but why do they choose to teach at Roanoke College? Because they want to be in a classroom with 18 students, and they want to know them, and they want to care about their whole life, and they want to think about students in a holistic way so that they can really focus on the kind of life they want to live. You know, our mantra is, our purpose is to help you discover your purpose. So that's a big part of what work is work, but when we find work where we can contribute and that is meaningful at the same time, those kinds of jobs have staying power.
And that's the power of a liberal arts school. I've attended several different colleges myself, and the feel is different. The big research institution at Virginia Tech, which has an awesome place.
They all play a role. They're just very different.
Right. Often people are just focused on that idea of, like, what job are you training people to have, or what is your ability to place people in employment? I know that's important. People still worry about that, but in terms of like a classic liberal arts education, how does that compare to a more focused, we're going to turn you into an architect?
Well, I really appreciate the question. It's a very important conversation to have. And listen, we absolutely want our education to result in a job upon graduation. That is important. And the good news is that is absolutely happening. In fact, we've got great research out of Georgetown University that a student, because they graduated from Roanoke College, is going to make over $1 million more over a lifetime because they on average, because they graduated from Roanoke College. So people are getting jobs. But here's the conversation I think we need to be having in the 21st century. What job isn't constantly transforming or coming and going? What jobs are we preparing students for at Roanoke College? Well, one answer might be that job as soon as they graduate, but actually we're preparing them for the multiple jobs that they're going to have over a lifetime, and being able to constantly reinvent themselves, to be adaptable, to be agile, to be able to work in groups and teams, to have leadership skills, to be able to communicate effectively, to be excellent writers. These are the kinds of students that are at Roanoke College and the kind of education they're getting. So, but not only do we want them to get a job that earns a living, we also want them to ask the question, what kind of work is going to give my life meaning and purpose? It's going to be the kind of job that I get up in the morning and say, that is worth it, that makes my life feel like it matters, that it makes a difference. And sometimes those can be independent things. You can actually be very good at a job that makes a very good salary that you hate. Right. And having that conversation is important. One of the things that we say is we want every student at Roanoke College to have an internship or meaningful work experience while they're at Roanoke College. Well, why? Well, I just talked to a student this week who said, I had a great summer internship because I wanted to go to law school, so I was working with a local attorney. And what I learned is I hate what attorneys do. And I said, that is a wonderful internship. That's the best kind of internship because The worst kind of internship, the worst kind of thing that you could do is to graduate and go to law school, invest all that time and money, and then to realize, wow, that's not really what I think is in line with the kind of work that I want to do.
I want to talk a little bit about your students. You said enrollment's about 2,000. Is that comfortable for you all? Is that what you are? Do you want more? Is it, how does that? How does that line up with your goals?
Yeah, we really want to grow Roanoke College, not significantly, but we would like to grow somewhere over the next 10 years between 2,300 and 2,500 students. Right now, about half of our students come from out of state and half come from Virginia. So it's a really nice mix of students from all over the country, but it has a real Virginia feel to it. But a lot of our growth is going to be, we're really focused on growing the number of transfer students that we have, international students, and then another really important population is we're dipping our toes into graduate work. We're launching our first MBA this summer, and we're excited about that. And I think over the next 2-3 years, you're going to see us launch another 5 or 6 master's programs, and that will be part of our enrollment growth as well.
Sure. I'm sure you experienced this while at Tech, and the vestiges of it are everywhere. Virtual learning became a necessity during the pandemic. Has it changed the way professors approach their courses? Has students expressed a preference for more or less virtual learning?
Yeah, one of the things I love about students is they actually enjoy in-person learning if it can't be delivered through a technological way. So one of the things that if you use methodology in the classroom that could be easily delivered through an online format, they're going to ask the question, why can't this be delivered either way, the one that feels more preferable to me, if there's no added value to being in person? So what I think is that the student, the consumer in this case, is going to force colleges and universities to have models, educational delivery models that make sense. So, for example, if we're talking about a master's degree in education, that might be something we might deliver through a virtual format as opposed to an in-person format, because most of the people who are getting a master's in education are teaching all day long, and so they need a different format, one that they can do on the weekends and in the evenings. And what would be the added value to coming together? Well, that could be debated. Maybe there are modules where they come together for just a moment, but that's the kind of question that we need to ask ourselves. It is really hard to replace the value of an in-person experience when it's constructed in really meaningful ways, other than content delivery. I mean, one of the things, if we're just delivering content, that can be delivered online, but learning
and outside of a higher education institute.
Oh, absolutely, and lots of people are doing it. But relationships are the power of learning and transformation. So bringing that together is at the heart of what the undergraduate Roanoke College experience is. And many of our students, they come to Roanoke College because they want the mentoring of a faculty. They want a relationship with that faculty member. They want that faculty member to ask them questions, to know their name, to care about their life. They want to have those conversations with students, and they want to be in an environment that is a shared learning experience. And so that's part of what makes a small college really different.
Sometimes, the phrase ivory tower, this shining place on a hill where students go and they don't emerge from it very often. That model's gone, hopefully. But what is the relationship of Roanoke College to the greater community, Salem, Roanoke, both county and city?
Well, one of the things I love about Roanoke is our campus butts up against Salem. I mean, you one step and you're on Main Street in downtown Salem, so it's got a lot of that town gown energy, and I'm really proud that we're in the Roanoke Valley. That Roanoke is a terrific learning laboratory for our students. Many of them have internships there. I think the relationship with the Roanoke Valley is really important. It's partly why I said, we want to be the university of the college, if you will, of the Roanoke Valley. We want people to see it as their campus right there in the center of Salem and adjacent to the city of Roanoke. We wanted people to feel that way. And so we're spending a lot more time in the local high schools. We're focusing tremendously on our community college campuses. And we go to Virginia Western often, and we spend a lot of time with Virginia Western. And we're even thinking about dual enrollment with Virginia Western, where a Virginia Western student could actually come and have a Roanoke College ID and use our rec center and eat on our campus and even stay in our residence halls if they wanted to. Wow. These are the kinds of things that we're thinking about, because we want, the goal here is not simply how do we get more people to come to Roanoke College. The big goal here is how do we lift up the Roanoke Valley? How can we create and be the kind of citizen that is for the entire community? There's a lot of conversation about how we keep young people in the Roanoke Valley, and this is really important. That's why we're trying to develop partnerships with industry, meaningful work experience while they're in college. They graduate, they're ready to go and stay in the Roanoke Valley. That's a win-win-win for everybody.
And I know that a good friend of mine is involved in that sort of freshman experience when they first come to school, where there's a day where they bring everybody to downtown Roanoke and say, look, this is 15 minutes away. You guys can come down here and see music and do all the things that exist in the city.
Yeah, it is if you haven't seen it, it's just every person in the first year class, first year and transfer, we put them all on dozens of buses lined up, and they all get in, and we take them down to downtown Roanoke, and we spend the evening there, and we give them Roanoke money to spend in the stores. We want them to embrace this community. We also do a similar day in downtown Salem. We just don't have to bus them, they just walk out.
You just walk,
but it's
yeah.
so important.
Sure.
We want them to feel like this is their home.
One of the issues with a school like Roanoke College is that, and I thank you, by the way, for your website publishes things like this is how much it costs to go here.
Yeah.
But tuition is $33,000 and some change,
Yep.
and 70+% live on campus, and that's another $15,000. With all the talk we have about student debt and everything else, I know that a lot of those students are getting financial aid, but how do you maintain a diverse and a student body that looks like America in that when they look at that price and think, oh, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah, well, if a person watching this remembers anything, I hope they'll remember this, is Roanoke College is a very affordable place. And with the tuition assistance grant from Virginia, so anyone who attends a private school can get $4,000 off. For a student who's Pell eligible, so low socioeconomic background, which roughly 30% of our students are Pell eligible students, they get their Pell stipend. And then plus students who have, for a 2.8, a 2.9, a 3.0, often if you have a 3.0, then we'll often, we publish it right on there, discount your tuition immediately off the top of that. So if you take your merit automatic deduction plus your tuition assistance grant if you're from Virginia, and if you're Pell eligible, then we're talking about public school prices for a very intimate, customized education.
We have about 2 minutes left. You've arrived at a campus that, from the outside anywhere, the physical plant seems to be in really good shape. What are the biggest, and it doesn't have to be physical, what are the biggest needs for Roanoke College right now?
Yeah, I think we want Roanoke College to be a place that people feel is theirs. And so I don't know if it's a need, it's a message that we want to say that we care about the Roanoke Valley. One of the wonderful things that we're able to do is bring in 50% of our students from coming out of state. We have a good number of students who come from the Northeast, North Carolina, South Carolina. Gosh, we want them to stay. If we can bring that talent to the Roanoke Valley and for them to see the kind of contribution they can make here, That is great. So here's a need. We need friends to tell the story of Roanoke College, how fortunate we are to have this wonderful place as a part of this larger community, and for all of us to think together about how we can contribute to lift up everyone here in the Roanoke Valley.
Well, that's great. And we didn't get to talk about, we're running out of time. I wanted to talk about the new cycling team and all kinds of other things you have going on there, but sadly, we'll just have to do that another time. As we conclude the program, I just want to thank Dr. Frank Shushok for taking the time to introduce himself to us and to you, and I hope it's the first of many visits to the station for him. For What It Takes, I'm Tom Landon.